host of the Gridiron.
Oh man. Welcome to the Gridiron, baby. If you can give this video a thumbs up and maybe share this video, that would be absolutely freaking phenomenal. If you subscribe to my channel, thank you. If not, please go down below, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell icon. That way next time I go live, if I put a video out, you'll be notified. And it's free of charge. It's totally free of charge. What do you got to lose? But if you are subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you want to help support my channel, description box below, very top link, takes you to my membership page. I got 3 different membership levels. Each one has their own little perks to them. So once again, if you want to help support my channel, it would mean so much to me. And I thank you in advance. Thank you. And then finally, just underneath that, there's another link. Takes you to my Facebook group. It's called the New York Giants, the Gridiron. It's my Facebook group. We have over 9,800 members in the group. It is doing simply marvelous, might I add. Basically, if I'm alive and breathing and if I got internet access, I am putting stuff in this group darn near 365. It's called the New York Giants, the Gridiron. It's my Facebook group. Please join it. You will not be dissatisfied, I promise. Well, guys, woo! It's just about that time. It's like the countdown to Christmas is here. It's all the waiting and done, everything. It's almost off and running, guys. Gotta love it. Training camp is here. Tomorrow, everybody's supposed to show up, right? And then, obviously training camp and the preseason games. And I don't remember exactly what day it is, but, the Hall of Fame game will be here before you know it, right? That's their first official, whatever you want to call it, exhibition game or whatever, But it's on. It's on, guys. All that waiting and then the new season is upon us. Now, of course, we have still, well over a month before that first actual game happens. But, the pads will be on. The guys will be popping. People will be popping each other and all that, all other things. There'll be contact, right? There'll be injuries. But, it's a lot of these, the fighting for certain positions and all that, some obviously some of them are, locked down. Others are, they got some stuff open. Some positional battles be going on. So some of them, obviously, even the ones that are locked down, who's going to back the guy? Who's going to be the 9/possibly 10, offensive linemen to make the roster? Who's going to be the wide receivers? Right after maybe the Fab 4 that we got. And so a lot of stuff needs to be answered. But it's really nice. That we got. We'll start having some type of meaningful football to go on, because a lot of it also is at least now there's a lot of open training camps, that to the public. So it means that the public's going to be there. Obviously, that means the media will be there. So there'll be a lot of stuff that be reported, talked about, and all and everything. So unlike in mini camp and OTs and all of that, where only so much was available to the public or the media. As once again, there's only so much you can tell OTAs, because like the offensive lineman, you can't block or nothing like that. There's only so much you can do. Even the wide receivers catching passes, like the defensive backs, not allowed to touch the wide receivers. But so now, we'll get a good indication of the action, contact and everything. So, but I seen this article, and it's about Spider-Man, right? He's got his shield and all. It says Spider and all that and everything. So, if this guy can stay somewhat healthy, last year was just unbelievable. Brian Burns was just constantly one injury after the. I mean, there were so many, and the guy just kept playing. Yeah. So you got to give him a lot of credit. I mean, he had a bunch of nagging injuries, and he still put on a very good season. But I saw this article here, and about Burns looking like a bargain. When we signed him, hey, we got the guy for 5 years. Obviously we got him for another 4. Let's hopefully we still have him for that long, right? But and just so we have him for 4 more, and just so happens to be that we got some guy by the name of Abdul Carter, quite possibly for 5. So, right. Now we picked up Kayvon's 5th-year option. I'm going to be talking about some contract years in a little later portion of our program here, because there's a lot of guys from that 2022 class who'll be fighting, right, for some contracts. But, we got Kayvon. Obviously, this is his 4th year. We picked up his 5th-year option, so we have him for at least 2 more years. And you would hope that the Giants picked up his 5th-year option. They do have some kind of inkling of re-signing the guy, for another 3 or whatever, So hopefully, right, we might have Spider, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon for a few more years, quite some time. So that'd be good. But I saw this, and you compare this to what T.J. Watt signed for, and it's like, wow. I'm going to show some numbers here, like last year. The pressures that Burns got compared to the pressures that T.J. Watt got, and Burns is a straight up bargain. Let me tell you what. Let me freaking tell you what. He is a bargain. But NFC East news. This is from. Well, actually, this is a blog. It is from Blogging the Boys. It's just it's like I guess a Dallas Cowboy article here. But it was a good one. So they were, praising the Giants here. So all right, okay. We'll talk. We'll read off a article from the Blogging the Boys. So it says Brian Burns seems like a bargain for the Giants now. And, if you want to look at 28, I forgot what it was, 28.2. I know it says somewhere in the article, but 28.2, if you're looking at that as being a bargain, it's a bargain. The latest news from around the division. So they're talking about the Steelers blockbuster deal that they just did. Just flipped the script on Brian Burns' $141 million payday. This is from Matt Sidney of G-Men HQ. So I guess maybe G-Men HQ wrote this article, maybe, and the Steelers the Cowboys just are putting it on their website here. I'm not exactly sure, but what's up, buddy? A rising market makes the Brian Burns deal feel like a steal. It wasn't long ago that the Giants pulled off a blockbuster trade with the Carolina Panthers and handed Brian Burns a 5-year, $141 million extension. Time moves fast in the NFL, and it does. It does. Let's see. When the ink dried, Burns became the second highest paid edge rusher behind Nick Bosa, who landed a $170 million deal from the San Francisco 49ers 1 year prior. At the time, the reaction was mixed. Some saw it as a smart long-term investment, because you also figure, you look at a 28.2, right? And it's like, but it's a 5-year deal. You go, 3 years, from the time he signs it, you go like 3 years, 4 years into the future, it's going to be a heck of a bargain. Well, I'm going to show you here in a minute why it's right, at least right now, compared to what TJ Watt's getting, why it's a real good bargain. Let's hope the guy can stay healthy and all of that, right? But the time the reaction was mixed. Some saw it as a smart long-term investment, locking down a top-tier pass rusher without breaking the bank. Others questioned whether Burns' production really justified that kind of money. But now that the dust has settled, hindsight is doing the Giants a favor. Burns' $28.2 million per year once raised eyebrows. Now it looks like a discount. After ESPN's, Hi, I'm Adam Schefter. I'm Shefty. After ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that TJ Watt reset the market with a jaw-dropping 3-year, $123 million deal, $41 million. 41. I mean, I don't know. Brian Burns' deal isn't just digestible; it's a borderline team friendly. Burns may not have had the same resume as Watt, but few do. Well, last year, actually, Burns' resume, according to PFF, I'm just going by their numbers, not their PFF numbers, but what they have as far as pressures and sacks and all that and everything. Okay. Watt has the most sacks out of anyone over the past 5 seasons with 73.5. His 100. Could you imagine nowadays what Lawrence Taylor would be getting? What, 180 trillion a year? I mean, could you imagine what Lawrence Taylor would be getting right now? Wow. Watt has the most sacks out of anyone over the past 5 seasons with 73.5. His 108 career sacks below Burns' 54.5 out of the water. But at least Burns still has the youth on his side. Watt will turn 31 this upcoming season, while Burns turned 27 this past April. So 27, 28. So by the time Burns is in it, we have him till his 5th year, okay, of his contract. Burns will just turn 30 and basically in April, and he'll be playing out that his 5th year of his contract, he'll be just 30 years old. Watt's talent is undeniable, but he has played with an objectively better defense. That's true, the defensive front, than Burns has both in Carolina and in New York. Now, I mean, at least now in New York, he does have sexy, but he has Kayvon, he has sexy, now he has Abdul Carter. But the tides could be turning quickly in the 27-year-old's favor. Over the past 2 off seasons, it's clear General Manager Joe Schoen is going back to Big Blue's Super Bowl roots by revamping and reinforcing the defensive line. Burns was already joined by Kayvon and Dexter in year 1, but year 2 offers much more support. Schoen signed free agent and Chauncey Golston early in free agency before adding Abdul Carter and Darius Alexander via the draft. Carter was the class's de facto best pass rusher, equipped with athleticism and bend few players in the league possess. Alexander offers run-stuffing abilities with pass rushing potential, making New York's defensive line one of the most feared units. And of course, as I said, I mean, obviously year in and year out, the Steelers, their defensive line is always up there, always up there. They always have that good defense. But let me show you here. All right. Share the screen. I'm going to I'll just show you the numbers here. All right. I got 74. There we go. Here's TJ Watts. Okay. I'll give you his numbers here. Okay. Now this is from last season. Okay. All right. Now take in mind, he played 1,000 snaps too. TJ Watt played 1,000. All right. And he had right here. This is the total pressures. He had 57. Total pressures, total. Now, according to PFF, right? Now, you go to other, somebody might have him at 56. Somebody might have it in 59. That's all I'm going, because I got a subscription here with PFF. So they got stuff like this. The one thing I don't like is that they have the sacks they have. There are no half sacks. Right. So whatever he had like last year, I don't know if he had like 11 and a half sacks or whatever it was, but see here they got him at 12. So everybody has an even, there's no 6.5. Not like everybody's an even number sacks. So this number is usually wrong, but they credit him with 57 total pressures, and he had 1,000 snaps, 57 pressures, $41 million. Now, I'm not sure if they paid him, for what he did in the past. And say, well, he earned the 41, or, they're paying him for what he's doing in the future. I don't know. But he had, for $41 million. So I got like a cat and a dog here, and sometimes they got hair gets stuck to my face, and all I feel is this hair on my face. I'm trying to pluck it off. But for $41 million, they gave TJ Watt $41 million, 1,000 snaps, 57 pressures. Now, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know what TJ Watt, like his injury report, but he looked like he played like in every game last year. He played 1,000 snaps. He played more. I'm going to spoiler alert. He played more snaps, a lot more than Brian Burns did. Okay. So I don't know if, obviously you play one down in the NFL, during the regular season. So, everything's not perfect. I mean, you don't go into a game, play 50, 60 snaps or whatever, contact constantly every play, and you don't walk out of it with some little bump, without a bump and bruise. So, certainly not saying TJ Watt, the dude just gives it his all. So I'm not saying he certainly didn't have his nicks and bumps and bruises. Certainly not saying that. I said anybody, but you play 1,000 snaps. By the end of the season, you got some nicks and bumps and bruises and stuff. But I do know that from following the Giants every week, Burnsy was especially in training camp. The dude had a groin. He always had something going on, always. And all I did each week was keep playing. Okay, so let me share my screen here, and I'll show you what Burnsy did. All right, let's see. That was TJ Watt. Okay, here's Brian Burns. All right, so this is last season. Okay, just last season. I'm not comparing seasons in the past. Like that. This is just the last season. Okay, so Brian Burns, $28 million. Okay, so he had 865 snaps. So TJ Watt had 135 or 137 or whatever it was more snaps. He had well over 130 more snaps than Brian Burns. Burnsy had 61 total pressures and 135 less snaps. If he had the same amount of snaps as TJ Watt had, he might have had 65 pressures or so, or whatever. So last year, right, Burns was 28 million, always had something wrong with him physically, right? 28 million, and he got 61 total pressures according to PFF. So I'm going by somebody else, I'd have him at 63 pressures. Somebody else might have him at 58. Is all I'm going by, right? But in 135, 137 or so last snaps, he had 4 more pressures. Okay. And he's $13 million less per season. TJ Watt's $41 million. Burnsy is 28. So Burns is a bargain. And it says in that article too. Every year. I said, don't get me wrong. Last year, the Giants, I had good, Kayvon, Sexy, and Burns, right? Well, I said, this year, it should be even better, right? Bowen's got his work cut out for him. Bowen's under a lot of heat. We got some guys here, on contract years. Well, Bowen's are going to be another one. Because I'll tell you what, if, especially if Dable gets fired, I mean, if this defense does not do pretty good, right? There ain't no way in HEL double hockey sticks that a new head coach coming in is keeping Bowen if he can't get this defense to do good. So Bowen's under a whole lot of pressure. Let me tell you what. But the thing I say is now is like, where are you sliding the pressure to? Right? I mean, you got like 4 guys, right? Expectations for the first 4 weeks. Well, let's say, wow, the first 4. I think what do we got? What do we got? The Commanders, the Cowboys, is it the Chargers and the Chiefs? I think it is. Record Dart. Well, the thing is with Dart, see, that's going to be the interesting thing. I mean, when do they wind up? They're going to pull the plug on the season somewhere along the line. What's our record going to be? Because pulling the plug on a season, you get these guys all juiced up and everything like that, trying to go for a playoff, possibly playoffs, and you go like 10, 11 games into the season or something like that. You decide to like pull the plug. What they did, like with Eli, we were 9 games into the season. 2004, and they were 5-4. Actually, the Giants were 5-2. They lost 2 tough games. And they were 5-4, still in the playoff hunt, and they decided to pull the plug on the season and put Eli in there. And of course, Eli lost the first 6 games. We went from 5-4 to 5-10. Then they won the last game of the season. So that's tough. That's going to be a tough one. I mean, obviously, the thing is, try to compete this year, be as best as you can, but also that one of the biggest things is got to get Dart in there to see, get him those snaps. I mean, the problem is, if you get Dart in there, there's a good chance, our record might wind up taking a hit, but those snaps will be so valuable to him, maybe going, into the next season. It's like, not saying Dart's going to be Eli, but you figure what happened with Eli, he got those snaps. They were so valuable in 2004. And in 2005, we made the playoffs. 2006, we made the playoffs. In 2007, we won the Super Bowl. So I mean, those are so valuable. So that's going to be the tough thing. Are they going to pull a plug on the season, or do we have to be like 3-8 after 11 weeks or something like that to decide to pull the plug on a season? Or are they going to pull the plug on a season if we're like 5-5? That's going to be tough. But I mean, I'd be shocked if they don't get Dart in there. I mean, unless Wilson has us, playing really well, But I would be shocked if we don't get Dart in there somewhere along the line. The first 4 weeks, tell you what, we did pretty good against the Commanders last year. And we should have beat them. What was it? I don't remember what it was. Week 3, whatever it was last year. If we actually had a kicker, we should have beaten them. Right? So one of these years, we got to beat the freaking Cowboys. I mean, I'm not impressed by them. One of these times we got to beat the damn Cowboys. Now, then, of course, we got to play. I think it's the Chiefs and then the Chargers. So I hate making predictions because every time I want to drink in the Kool-Aid. Oh yeah, no, we should be pretty good. Yeah, that's what I said last year. I said, no, we should be pretty good. Yeah, and we were 3-14. So I mean, we got I don't understand if we don't want to beat the Eagles. They're just so good. But one of these years, we got to beat the damn Cowboys. I mean, it just seems like each year they just get worse. They don't sign free agents. The draft sometimes are just not very good. And it's like every year they just find ways to beat us. I mean, we got to beat the damn Cowboys. We've got to beat them. I mean, last year in our own division, we got to start doing better in our own division. I mean, can't beat the Eagles. Couldn't beat the Cowboys last year. Couldn't beat the Commander. I mean, there we go. Belt ass. Oh my goodness. All right, we got. That's all right. That's all right. So and I was talking about this here. I was talking about contract years. We got quite a few guys because if we don't, let's not forget, right? In 2022, we had like what was it? I think 1,847 draft picks. So we got a lot of guys. Now we know that Kayvon's not in a contract year because we picked up his fifth-year option. Then I think there's two guys. That certainly doesn't mean the rest of the guys in that draft class are actually going to want to make the team, like maybe Joshua Zudu. Now he might want to maybe going on the practice squad. Who knows? But and DJ Davidson, Jordan Riley. Not that Jordan Riley was in that draft class, but DJ Davidson, right? He may not make the fit because we brought in a few guys from free agents for that defensive line, right? But we got a lot of guys, especially this dude right here, right? Want some contract years. So where we at here? Where is my? Here we are. There we go. All right. Oh, let me share my screen. Where are we at here? Share the screen. Okay, there we go. We'll go. I mean, this the big draft class here. Here we go. Here we go. Now, of course, the two guys at the bottom aren't on the team anymore. I'm a little disappointed. Not in Darren Beavers, not disappointed, but a little bummed out because I'm not seeing maybe what he could do because he got injured. And if you ever listen to Big Blue Kickoff Live, I try to listen to them certainly during the season because those guys they work. I think they're employed for the Giants, so they're there every day. They see what's going on. They're there even days when the media is not there, so they know what's going on. And Paul Dottino, he's been with the Giants, I think he said 43 seasons. He's been with the Giants, I think, since 83, I think it was. Before his third season. Yeah, so maybe 1983, Parcells' first season. They were 3-12-1. So Paul Dottino's been there a long time. He's seen everybody. But with Darren Beavers, because when he got injured, Paul Dottino said it was a pretty significant injury, and he just wasn't able to come back from it. At least and save his roster spot. But of course, Marcus McKeithen, right? He's no longer on the team. But if you look at all these other guys, right? I said we start here, right? DJ Davidson, Micah McFadden. I mean, what a fantastic fifth-round pick. Let me tell you what, Dane Belton. Right? We got our two starting safeties, but Belton is a fine backup. Not that he's not an all-pro or nothing like that. The guy gets around the ball, right? Daniel Bellinger, we're going to be talking about him in a little bit. Cordell Flott, he's going to be battling out quite possibly for the second cornerback spot with Banks, right? Of course, Joshua Zudo, Wando Robinson. As I said, now we do know we picked up Kayvon's fifth-year option, so we got him for this year and next year. But Evan Neal. Now, Evan Neal, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, if somehow the Giants do not wind up re-signing him after they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. So, but some team out there is going to pick him up. There ain't no doubt about it. The Giants let him go. Somebody's going to pick Evan Neal up. And if Evan Neal does wind up going to a team that has a good offensive line coach or whatever that can teach him proper technique and all that stuff and everything, I'm sure he's going to do like Mekhi Becton. He went to the Eagles and he won himself a Super Bowl and he had himself a pretty darn good year. When he was with the Jets, he didn't play too well, quite possibly up to his capabilities. He got injured a lot, but of course, when he goes to the Eagles, he didn't get injured at all, and he had himself a fantastic season. So with Evan Neal, if the Giants don't bring him back after this season, he's going to go to somebody else is going to pick him up. There's only so many sequoia trees on the face of the earth. There's only so many guys, 6'7", whatever his weight, I don't know, 340, I'm not sure. There's only so many guys like that. Okay. And he was a first round pick. He was picked 7 in the draft. And he came from Alabama. right? There's only so many guys like this walking the earth. He's going to get picked up. Somebody's going to pick him up. Now, the thing is, of course, so that's a given. He's going to get picked up. But he's going to want to try to perform well this season. Obviously, they all do. It's not nobody goes into a season. Well, this year I'm going to suck, and then I'm going to try to pick it up next season. No, I mean everybody obviously goes into each season, right? But Evan Neal's got some motivation on his side this year. They're giving him a chance at guard, okay, and see if he can, get himself a spot in the starting five, because that right guard spot we don't know, right tackle we don't really know, right? But as I said, if Evan Neal, doesn't get re-signed by the Giants, somebody's going to pick him up. And I said, if he goes to a place that has a good offensive line coach, I'm sure they'll make Evan Neal look very respectable. Not saying they can turn him into a Hall of Famer or maybe even All Pro, but I say he also at Evan Neal too. Last season, according to PFF, it's all I'm going by, right? He was our best run blocking offensive lineman. I can't remember. I think it was zone blocking. I think he graded out his run blocking was like a 90. Okay. There was the gap in the zone. I think it was the zone. I think his gap block might have been like a little, obviously it was less than that. But the two schemes, the run blocking put together, he graded out at 80 overall as run blocking. I mean, he was just straight up mauling some guys in the run blocking last year. His pass protection still needed to be, a little bit to be desired. But then again, he was playing on the outside. Maybe where he needs to slide on the inside, where he can be more in a phone booth, right? A guy right in front of him, right? So maybe with that might, help his numbers. His pass protection might get better. But last season, he's fantastic in the run. So, I mean, if the Giants don't re-sign him, somebody's going to pick him up for sure. Of course, then we got, Wan'Dale Robinson. Let me time to highlight him. Dude, I think it was 93 receptions last year. He's been healthy. He's starting to come back. I mean, obviously, his first season, he got injured right away. Well, not right. Well, actually, I think he caught his first pass was against the Titans, and he got injured. When he came back, he was having a very good game against the Lions. Then he got injured. He's out the rest of the season. Now, a lot of times they say, like with your knee or when you get injured, sometimes it takes you a little while to come back. But last season, he caught 93 balls. The problem was his yards per catch was not very good. Not very good at all. So hopefully we can find ways to get him the ball and he can get some yak yardage, or his yards per catch can go up, but we'll have to wait and see. So it's going to be interesting to say. I mean, we don't have anybody per se in the slot, right, who can maybe replace him. So it's going to be interesting to see, are the Giants going to re-sign him? We have some money next season. Now, if we also resign some of these guys, you resign some of them to in 2 years, we're going to have some money, right? Next season, we have some, but in 2 years, we got a lot of money. So if we can bring back some of these guys that on the contract years, what you do is if you sign them to say, I'm just throwing a number out there, $10 million, next season, you try to sign them for maybe where their contract only hits the books for maybe $4 million. Or $5 million or so, and you push some of that money down the road when we will have money, right? So Wan'Dale Robinson, you certainly can replace the guy, but what you can get at him. I mean, he had over 90 catches last year. So I said, Joshua Zudo, we don't even know if this guy's going to make the roster or not. Is he going to be the starting? The starting, not the starting, but maybe the 9 or so offensive linemen that make the 53-man roster. Is he going to be part of that? Don't know. Then, of course, there is the practice squad, though. So he might land on the practice squad. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't. He's in a contract year. Not exactly sure. I mean, what he's put on his resume so far. for the Giants has not been super spectacular. Right? So I don't even know if the Giants are going to even entertain trying to bring him back. Don't know. Cordell Flott. Now, with Mr. Flott here, right, Mr. Beanpole, he hasn't done too bad. His problem is he's thin and it can be injury prone. But if the Giants can bring him back, I mean, even if he's not the starter, right? That's some good depth behind Banks. Now, but it is going to be interesting to see, obviously, going forward in training camp, right? That cornerback number 2, right? You got Flott and Banks going to duke it out. Who's going to be the winner? But I'm saying, even if Flott doesn't wind up being the starter, he's good backup if he can stay healthy. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, regardless of the Giants bringing him back, it's going to be a big season for Flott because contract year. So he's going to want to look, obviously, as I said, once again, nobody goes into a season, well, I'll play 50-50, kind of good, kind of bad. No, I mean, obviously everybody, but we all know that when it's a contract year, these guys have a little bit more motivation to play a little bit better, right? So, wouldn't be surprised if Flott really played well this year, once again, if he can stay healthy. Now, we're going to talk about Daniel Bellinger a little. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but a little toward the end of the program here, right? But we're going to talk about him, biceps Bellinger, right? It's contract year for him. We got, I don't know how many tight ends we're going to keep on the 53. We're going to keep 3. We're going to keep 4. And we got some tight ends, but I mean, Bellinger, who started off kind of like up here, is kind of like, the second year we had Waller. So, of course, Bellinger took a back seat to Waller. Then Waller retired. And then last season, Bellinger took a back seat to Theo Johnson. We got Manhurts as our blocker. And we just drafted Fedoni. And for all intents and purposes, Fedoni, I mean, I'd have a hard time. You just draft Fedoni this year, I have a hard time thinking they're going to be putting Fedoni on no practice squad. So maybe we might keep 4 tight ends. We'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be an interesting season for Bellinger. But I'm going to be talking about him a little bit later. And, of course, then we got Dane Belton, right? Now it's going to be interesting for him because obviously he's never really carved out a role unless somebody got injured as far as a starter. Now we got Newman and we got Holland. So unless somebody gets injured, which let's hope not, Belton once again is going to be probably the third wheel. Unless they have a 3 safety, right, formation, right, Belton might be the third safety. Belton might be on the field, but other than that, for the most part, Belton might, if somebody gets injured. If somebody's got, like we saw McKinney a couple seasons ago, play what, every snap. So if you get like Holland, if he's doing real well and all, same thing with Newman, they may not come off the field at all. It's not like, we have the defensive line rotation or the edge rusher rotation or something like that. Yeah, give this guy a blow or something like that. No, if safeties, they just stay on the field, right? There's no left tackle rotation, If Andrew Thomas is out there and he's healthy, guess what? Andrew Thomas is playing every snap all year long, right? So Belton, I said, unless somebody gets injured or if they have a 3-man, 3 safety, right, formation on defense, well, then he'll be on the field. But it's going to be interesting to see, because it always takes 2 to tango. Maybe you want Belton back, but Belton might be like, well, they got Newman and they have Holland. So no matter what, I'm going to be the third safety at best. Let me see if I can go someplace maybe where I can play. It'll be interesting. He's not going to require a ton of money. Do the Giants want to, or do the Giants, want to try to maybe replace him in the draft? You can try to replace him. See, they drafted him in the 4th round. Okay. Maybe the Giants, they bring in another safety Or maybe the Giants could, in the 4th round next year, whatever, draft a safety to replace him. So that'll be interesting to see. And of course, then the last 2 guys, I'll go to DJ Davidson now. He may not even make the roster. He might want it maybe on the practice squad because you got like with him and Jordan Riley, now we brought in some other guys, right? We brought in quite a few guys for the defensive line. So Davidson may not be one that may not make it. Or if he does, hold on. Get out of this. These freaking ads are unbelievable. Yeah. So DJ Day, he might want himself on the practice squad. He may not even make the practice. We'll have to wait and see, right? But I don't really know. Can't really see the Giants trying to, make him a top priority to try to bring him back. I said he may not even make the team, but that'll be interesting to see, right? That's going to be one of those, the second and third team starters or whatever that'll be battling out to make the 53, or if not the 53, making the practice squad. So Davidson, he's got his work cut out for him this year. And then we got this guy, the guy, of course, is on the thumbnail of this video, Micah McFadden, right? His snaps are going to go down this year, right, without question, because of with the Abdul Carter. Because if you got, you got Sexy's out there, you got Burnsy out there, you got Kayvon. You want to get Carter out there with those guys, right? There might be some type of a formation where they have with Carter, right, where maybe they slide Kayvon in the one tackle. They got Dexter on over the nose, the center, but then you got Burns on the edge and you got Carter on the edge. You got those 4 guys like the NASCAR package on certain formations where those 4 guys can do their thing, right? And then if you got something like that, then you have a Carrick, right? And then you'll have McFadden still on the field. But McFadden, see, this is going to be interesting. McFadden's he has shown enough where he's on film where he can be a full-time starting linebacker. How much, because of with the addition of Carter, how much does McFadden's snaps take a hit? Right? And the Giants going to want to try to bring McFadden back because, he won't be, he'll play, but how much, will his snaps decrease because of the addition of Carter? Now, it might be the same thing with McFadden. It might be like, I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. Now, it might be the same thing with, with McFadden. It's like, I played a lot with the Giants, right? I know I can what I can do, right? They added Carter, and I had this many snaps. Now I'm with Carter, and I lost 300 snaps last season because of Carter. Do I want to go back with the Giants and get whatever 500 snaps in the season? Because as long as Carter's out there and those other guys, that's all I'm going to get, about 500 snaps, right? We don't want to go someplace else where maybe I can be a full-time middle linebacker. So it's going to be one of those things. It's going to take 2 to tango with McFadden, but somebody certainly worth keeping an eye on. That's for darn sure. I mean, as I said, do the Giants try to bring him back? Right. That was a good draft pick right there for Shane McFadden, late round pick. Now let me see here. Hold on, where are we at? I gotta find this here. In Belgium. Yep. Oh, I had it. I do apologize. I had the how much. I'm gonna look it up here in Spot Track here. Here we go, salary cap. Okay, Spot Track. Okay, so the Giants. All right, where are we at here? 2026. So next season, according to Spot Track, it's all I'm going by. As of right now, the Giants have about $19 million in cap space. Not a lot of money. Okay. But as far as trying to bring back a lot of these guys, now they can always do stuff with salaries and stuff, push money down the road and all of that to bring back some of these guys. But we don't have a ton of money. All right. But in 2027, right, like when Jameson Winston's off the books, Russell Wilson's off the books, maybe Jackson Dart is our starting quarterback who's making minimal amount of money, right? 2027, the Giants are, as of right now, have $155 million in salary cap space, as you know, according to Spot Track, right? If I go to overcap, they'll have a different number, right? But so next season, we don't have a ton of money. In 2 seasons, we're going to have over $150 million, baby. Yeah. So if the Giants were to bring back some of these guys who are on contract years, right? One of the things might be like if they sign them to, like, say, McFadden, same, whatever. I'm just throwing a number out there. 3 years, $24 million. Just throwing a number out there. So at $8 million a season. Well, it would be really behoove the Giants, right, to try to figure it out where next season McFadden only goes, like, we'll say maybe $4 million toward the cap. And he would be, what, $20 million toward the cap the next 2 seasons when the Giants have more money. So the Giants have a lot of, especially on defense. We got, a lot of those guys coming back, right? We got, Karake, right? We got Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Alexander, Golston, Burns, Kayvon for 2 more years, Banks for a couple more years, right? Obviously Phillips, because we just drafted him. We got Debo for 3 years. We got Holland for 3 years. We got Newman for 3 more years. So we got a lot of guys on the defense for multiple years, right? It would be nice to keep McFadden, because, as I said, once again, you could try to replace him, right? I'm not saying he's a Hall of Fame or all pro and all like that, but he's a good quality guy to have on the team. So, and he's tough as now. I mean, he obviously has his issues, He's very good going downhill and all of that, but, he has his issues. But, I mean, he's a good player to have. Good player to have. So, we always know when it's a contract year for guys, usually they really play pretty well. So, you saw all those guys that the Giants had in that 2022 draft class. There's still a lot of them on the team. So, got a lot of guys that, gonna want to get paid next season. So, we'll have to keep an eye on stuff like that. Then I seen this here. Now, this is, this one, Lane Kiffin compares Jackson Dart to Eli Manning. Of course, because they both came from Ole Miss and everything like that. But, Lane Kiffin, he knows a thing or two, right, about offense and about quarterbacks and all that and everything. So Lane Kiffin compares New York Giants quarterback Jackson Dart to an Ole Miss icon. Wonder who that could be, huh? Kiffin praises former signal caller, compares him to legendary Ole Miss quarterback Eli Manning. The one thing was, like, obviously with Eli, like, his numbers maybe were not always super spectacular, but, he was, there always certain things you can always look for in college quarterbacks. Sometimes, the teams they're on, like certain teams, right? Like LSU, they just churn out unfreaking believable wide receivers. A lot of times, like maybe Ohio State, just their wide receivers are just unbelievable. Alabama, some of these teams that, But, sometimes you also have to look at the quarterbacks that go to teams that, obviously aren't quite as good, and, teams that don't have unbelievable talent. I mean, I'm not praising Daniel Jones by any stretch of the imagination. But, you go to Duke to get maybe a good education and to play basketball. You don't go to Duke, you know what? I'm going to be a wide receiver for Duke, and I'm going to win the Blitnikoff Award. That doesn't happen. Yeah, you have visions of being like maybe winning the Blitnikoff. You're going to go, you're going to go to LSU. You're going to go someplace where you're going to get the ball, where you're going to have, So I'm saying, but sometimes you got to. it's not always looking at the guy's numbers per se, right? I said, like what Daniel Jones had, his numbers at Duke were not super spectacular. Then again, they're not super spectacular in the NFL either. But sometimes you got to look at, there are other intangibles you got to look at, like if you're playing at Ole Miss, right? Former Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart remains in headlines ahead of his rookie season for the Giants. Dart, who rewrote the record books during his time with the Rebels, helped transform the program under Lane Kiffin and company prior to being selected in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. The coveted signal caller threw for over 4,200 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions during the 2024 season while leading Ole Miss to a 10-3 record, right? A win in the Gator Bowl, and a number 11 AP poll finish. Now, the one thing that some people would do, and obviously maybe rightfully so, right, is I don't remember off the top of my head what the games were, but a lot of them were like he had 29 touchdowns and whatever it was, 6 interceptions. Well, they look at the worst teams that he played last season in those 13 games. They picked out like 8 or 9 games that he played against like really weaker opponent, and Dart really played well. But they also said that, well, you put him up against this team and this team. There was 3 or 4 games when he played against really good teams, and his numbers were not super spectacular. Right. So some of the Nancy negativities out there, they were talking, they were bringing that up. When the opponents was really, really good, Dart's numbers were not. The Rebels also earned back-to-back 10-plus win seasons. Now, this is also a little, once again, a little misleading, because when back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I started watching college football, some teams didn't even play 10 games in the season. Right now, because it's what? It's all about the Benjamins. We try to play as many games as we possibly can. Then what are we up to? I think it's 387 bowl games they're on right now. I mean, it's all you got to do. I looked at the new rule book in the college football just before I came on. All you got to do is win one coin toss during the regular. You don't have to win a football game. You can be 0-89. All you got to do is win one coin toss during the and you're bowl eligible. That's all you got to do. To me, it just the bowls are just. They're just so much. Once again, I'm an old fart, so please forgive me. It just, once again, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I watched in the beginning, if you were like 7-3, it was like, ooh, I don't know. It's like 7. We lost 3 games. I don't know. We may not get to a bowl game. We're 7-3. You had to have a good record to be in a bowl game back in the day. Now it's like teams are like 6-5 and 7-6, and it's like, anyway. I'm a Nancy negativity too. So, but winning back-to-back 10-win, it's once again it's a phenomenal feat, especially for Ole Miss. But I mean, they do play a lot of games. Now, it was tough to win 10 games back in like 1970s when Archie Manning was back there, right? Because they only played like 9 games in the season, maybe 10 at the most. So back 55 years ago, if the Ole Miss was going to have like a 10-win season, they would have to be undefeated. Back-to-back 10-win season for the first time since 59-60. And at 59-60, they might have been almost darn near undefeated. They might have been 10-1, right? Because, back then, they didn't play that many games. And they had a winning percentage of 74.36 dating back to 2022, Dart's first season at Oxford, which they won basically 3 out of every 4 games. Now he's adjusting well to life in the NFL while suiting up for the organization in the Big Apple. I think conceptually, I've pretty much ran all the same concepts, Dart said in an interview with Giants post-game host John Schmelk. John Schmelk, he's also on Big Blue Kickoff Live. He's been there for a while, too. Very, very smart. Very intelligent. He gets around. He knows his football. Dart said, and I think that's kind of universal throughout football. Obviously, the lingo and maybe some reads will change up here from here to there. And things are a little bit different. But what makes it much more complicated is obviously the players you're playing against and the scheme you're playing against. Having to go against our guys day in and day out has been some really good work. For me, something that's going to carry over in my aggressiveness and ability to push the ball down the field. And at the same time, I take care of the ball. You can look at my numbers year after year. I don't turn the ball over a lot, and I keep it on our side. Really excited to implement this offense more and more into some of my play style and whatnot. I'm really excited for the season. But Lane Kiffin has offered some significant praise for his former signal caller after comparing him to Ole Miss icon Eli Manning. I think there's a lot of Eli in there. Now, one of the things that there is not in there, okay, not even close, okay, is you look at film, right, of Dart in college. You know, he's maybe looking down the field. What's he doing? Tuck it. He's running. There was a video, and it's true. There was a video of Gruden, John Gruden. Well, I can't remember. It's called Gruden. It's not Gruden Camp. I can't remember what it's called. But John Gruden always brings in a lot of these quarterbacks, like maybe before they get drafted or whatever. And he's sitting down talking to them and all. And there's a video I seen with John Gruden. He's like, explain to me what's going on here in this game against Georgia, right? And obviously Dart's in the shotgun. He gets the ball, looks down the field. Everybody's covered. What's he do? He takes it down and he takes off. And as he's running with the ball, John Gruden's talking, Dart's across the table from him. And they're looking at the video. And he's like, what would Gruden tell you to do right here? And he said, you got the first down. What would Gruden do? Because he's running with the ball. He got the 10 yards or whatever it was. And what would Gruden tell you to do? And Dart's, you can hear Dart's voice. Get the first down and get out of bounds. Right. What do you do? And what does Dart do? He's running down the field. He gets past the first line, the first down yardage. Keeps running straight down the field into a corner. I guess a cornerback or a safety, whatever. Not only that, but he takes him on with his shoulder, right? And I think he gets away from that tackle, and I think he gets tackled by somebody else. So what's he do? He just takes the dude on. I mean, you got to love that, right? You ain't seen Eli do that. Absolutely not. But you got to remember, in the pros, a little bit of a different animal. He's not Josh Allen. But I hope he starts learning, because these guys may not try not to hurt him on purpose or whatever, but these guys are big, fast, strong. You keep trying to take on, it don't matter, cornerback, anybody. Something's going to happen. And I said, I think, if I remember from watching the video, he's running with the ball, and I think he makes contact, I think, with his thrown shoulder. Be careful of that. So Kiffin says, I think there's a lot of Eli in there. But then he has his dad in him, the defensive personality in him, where it takes over a little bit, and he gets a little aggressive. But most of the time throughout the week and stuff, he's very calm. There has a lot of scrambling early on the first year, and then he really started to keep his eyes downfield and create plays alive. Stay behind the line of scrimmage and create big plays, which he did a lot, including in the last bowl game. Let's see here. Dart remains a rookie quarterback to watch, and he's one of them. Absolutely to watch. So, but there's a video here. Giants Huddle podcast. John Schmelk says, I'm joined by Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin to talk about the Giants' first round pick Jackson Dart. So there is a video on that. This is where are we at here? This is from SI.com, but there is a video in there where Lane Kiffin does talk about Jackson Dart. So, But of course, Lane Kiffin was there with Dart, right? He wasn't there with Eli. But I mean, you can you can see some similarities there and everything. One thing Dart does do is he likes to push the ball down the field, right? So that's something to get excited about as well. But something, it's all going to be learned. Sometimes you have to give the defense, take what the defense gives you. That's a little check down or something like that. Okay. But Dart does like to push the ball down the field, which is cool. But one thing he's got to do, he has to, if you get the first down, slide, get the first down, get out of bounds, whatever you got to live to play another. But if it means, if it's the last game of the season or something like that, and you're trying to get a field goal to win the game, to go to the playoffs or something like that, I could see that. Sure. If you're in the playoffs and it means winning the playoff game to go on to the Super Bowl, and you got to hit contact with somebody, go for it, bro. If it means winning the Super Bowl, go right ahead, bro. Do what you got to do, right? But, I mean, it's a long season. Yeah. A lot of teams, got to be very careful. I mean, the Eagles had a phenomenal season last year, but one thing the Eagles were last season was very healthy. Right? If they had to put 4 quarterbacks in there like the Giants did last year, right, with Boyle and Tommy Chicken Cutler Parmesan and Dane, they had to put 4 quarterbacks in there. The Eagles had to put 10 different offensive line formations in there like the Giants did once Andrew Thomas got hurt and the wheels fell off the offensive line. It might have been a little bit different of a season. So staying healthy is huge, right? So now, unfortunately, the one nice thing, right, was the Giants, without question, certainly added to their defensive line, right? The rush, they're without question, right? I mean, we got Kayvon and Sexy's a mad man all by himself. Right, Burnsy, we got Abdul Carter, we brought Chauncey Golston in, maybe Alexander can maybe make it a little bit of a name for himself, right, as far as rushing. But one thing so far, unfortunately, how appropriate is this? From Duke, right, it's quite possibly because he got injured, right, he's one of the Giants. It's tough to call him bust, but he got injured. Right? And of course, as we all know, injuries occur during the season. Whoops, there we go. So, unfortunately, Giants' biggest bust for the 2025 season has already become painfully obvious. Things aren't looking great for the 5-year veteran. Not every draft pick, every free agent signing, or trade works out. That's the lay of the land in the NFL. Yes, it is. New York Giants are no strangers to the reality. You got that right, especially when it comes to somebody getting injured. Think Evan Neal, Devin Singletary, Darren Waller. All 3 of those moves have come back to bite Joe Shane in the you-know-what. Who is this here? This is from G-Men HQ. Matt Sidney wrote this article here. It's just like the saying goes, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, meaning being a general manager long enough and eventually bad moves will begin to define your tenure. Look no further than Bill Belichick, who left the best coaching career in the NFL history on a sour note, only to go on to coach college football. It happens. Shane's next swing and miss might already be here, and it's not hard to spot. The G-Men handed Victor Dimukeje a 1-year, it wasn't that big, right? $1.337 million contract in free agency to help boost their pass rush depth. And no one at fault of his own, that move has aged like milk. Have you ever smelled sour milk? Whew. So Jordan Renan read, Giants agreed to terms with outside linebacker Victor Dimukeje. The former Cards edge rusher had played in 55 games, had 8 career starts. He has 4 career sacks. So we're not talking, we didn't sign, the second coming of Lawrence Taylor or something like that. But, unfortunately with Dimukeji's injury, right, in 4 professional seasons, Dimukeji has amassed 4 sacks in 55 games. That's not great. Adding insult to injury is the fact that he had all 4 in one season, meaning he has gone 3 seasons without a sack. Originally drafted in the 6th round of the 2021 NFL Draft, Dimukeji offered the Arizona Cardinals a high motor kid with the work ethic to become a difference maker. His 21 and a half sacks at Duke, second all time, suggested a potential filled long-term solution to their outside linebacker problems. Boy, were they wrong. And anyone expecting things to suddenly click in New York is kidding themselves. This was a transformational offseason for Big Blue, one filled with upgrades all over the place, specifically along the defensive front. Shane signed veterans Jeremiah Ledbetter, Roy Robinson Harris, and Chauncey Golston. And that's another one of the reasons, like with Jordan Riley, DJ Davidson, they might have a hard time trying to make this roster. Right? And of course, then they drafted Abdul Carter and Darius Alexander. So, with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence already on the roster, there isn't much room for another experimental pass rusher, especially not one whose career production barely cracks the box score. With pressure mounting on this team to finally deliver, depth pieces are nice in theory, but not necessary. Is a guy who couldn't even crack the Cardinals rotation really going to do anything to crack the Giants rotation? So you got to look at it like that. You know what I mean? Now, because the Giants' defensive front is now we're talking elite here, okay? If Dimukeji could not become a starter with the Cardinals, is he going to be able to even crack the Giants' 53-man roster? And if he wasn't going to crack the Giants' rotation, it's almost like, why did we even bother signing him in the first place? No offense to the 25. He's only 25 though. He could definitely find some reps on another team where pass rushing reps mean a little more than they do in New York. With the talent on the roster, it's hard to see Dimukeji doing much of anything. At best, this feels like a wasted roster spot. At worst, it's clear. It's a clear misfire by a GM who can't afford many more. Giants didn't need Victor Dimukeji, and based on how things are trending, they probably won't keep him. In a make-or-break season, every roster spot matters, and this one's already trending in the wrong direction. Now, let me see here. I'm trying to see. Victor Dimukeji. Here we go. Okay, so it was in May. Suffered a torn pectoral muscle during an off-season workout. Dimukeji is looking at missing several months after reportedly suffering a pectoral muscle injury. So this was reported on May 8th. Right, so we're going back to a couple months ago. Giants recently completed phase 1 of their offseason program, the strength and conditioning phase. Unfortunately, one player won't make it through the remaining 2 phases. ESPN reported that outside linebacker Victor Dimukeji suffered a torn pectoral muscle during an off-season workout. This likely means that Dimukeji will miss several months while he recovers from the injury. Dimukeji, who signed with the Giants this past offseason after spending the first 4 seasons of his career with the Cardinals. 6'2", 262-pounder, played in 55 games with 8 starts. He recorded 67 tackles and 4 sacks, all of which came in 4 sacks came in 2023. So unfortunately, it is what it is. I mean, injuries happen, right? All right. But they didn't pay him a lot of money. But that is the one the one thing that is you kind of wonder. Oops, you kind of wonder is that if he wasn't going to make the roster, why do we wind up signing him? But all right, next, I saw this. A couple guys, unfortunately, said. I mean, obviously this happens all the time in the NFL. Unfortunately, guys get injured, right? And of course, sadly, they have to wind up retiring. And this, of course, has happened. Now the one here, all right, is Ellerson Smith. I mean, you feel bad, for the guy. It's just for us fans, it was just, I mean, because where he came from in college, he had some but it was, he didn't come from Alabama, right? But he didn't have a lot of sacks. You were kind of like, well, maybe we found a little diamond in the rough here, but. I mean, it's just once again, you feel horrible for the guy, but sometimes just so frustrating for us fans when a guy basically couldn't even walk and chew gum at the same time without like popping a hamstring or something. It's like it was just like, how did this guy make it through? Like, and I don't know if he, I don't know off the top of my head what his high school career or whatever, but how did this guy make it through like college? And he can't even. It's like he couldn't even. I can't even talk about the guy. It's just. I mean, he always was injured constantly. I mean, how did you make it through college? But him and Richie James. So unfortunately, and of course we know we had Richie James here for the 1 year. We bought him. I think it was like for $5 million. And so maybe possibly, what caused him maybe not to have a super spectacular role with the Giants was maybe, the injuries that he had gone through, and they were still nagging him. But we brought him in, I think it was like a $5 million we brought him in for. And it's like the guy hardly even played. It's like, why did we bring this guy in? But, so unfortunately, what we got here? With Richie James. Ex-Giants wide receiver retires out of nowhere before NFL training camp. Just a few years ago in 2022, wide receiver returner Richie James was a pretty key contributor What the hell are you talking about? Who the hell wrote this? Who's hitting the crack pipe on heavy sports? A key contributor? Are you kidding me? It was a key contributor for the Giants. The guy hardly played. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, on July 18th, just before the start of NFL training camps around the league, James announced his official retirement from professional football. Richie James said this: "It took time, but I have come to realize I am retired from the NFL. Seventh round, right? I feel like I was just a ball player to last that long. Unfortunately, my knee never healed properly. I was playing hurt since 2022." So when he was with the Giants. So maybe that's one of the reasons why we never, carved out any type of a role with the Giants. And he said, "Oh, well, I gave everything I got to the game of football. It took time, but I have come to realize I'm retired from the NFL," James posted unexpectedly on X. So James remained unsigned throughout the 2024 campaign after winning a Super Bowl with the Chiefs in 2023. Retired NFL wide receiver Richie James had his best season with the Giants. While the former Giants veteran retiring comes as a bit of a shock, considering he's only 29 years old and was playing solid football in 2022 and 2023, his announcement makes it sound as if injuries just caught up to him. Sadly, many NFL players suffered the same fate. It's a shame, but James did have his best statistical season with the Giants despite his injury-shortened career. In 2022, the wide receiver kick return recorded 569 yards and 4 touchdowns as a member of Big Blue. He also recorded 24 punts. He returned 24 punts for 100. I remember a lot of the punts he returned. Although he did fumble the ball a total of 3 times. That performance actually ranked second for New York Giants receivers in terms of yardage, just behind Darius Slayton. But I mean, he was second on the team with 569 yards, and apparently that was I didn't know. I didn't know that was one of his best statisticals at 569 yards. Let's see. It was the last time the Giants made the playoffs with new head coach Brian Daboll and former quarterback Daniel Jones leading the charge. James signed with the Chiefs in free agency the following offseason, appearing in 13 games for Kansas City between the regular season and the playoffs combined. Although his final NFL campaign ended with the championship and a Super Bowl ring, James was far less impactful as a player in 2023, with just 120 total receiving yards. He did add 387 return yards split between kickoffs and punts, and that was his main role throughout the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So I didn't even remember him even having that much yardage with the Giants. I just when we had him, it was like, I don't know. I thought we were going to get much more out of him, but it is what it is. Now we talk about Ellerson Smith here, right? The guy who's only drafted 4 seasons ago. Smith, a 4th-round pick by the Giants in 2021, began his career with Big Blue as he appeared in 13 games for the franchise over 2 seasons. Always injured. Oh, my goodness. He was waived by the team in July 2023 before spending time with the Jets and the Raiders, though he didn't play in the regular season for either of them. The former Northern Iowa player was a practice squad player for the Jets in 2023 before moving to the Raiders in the same capacity and playing for them in the following preseason. He was released by the Raiders last August before being scooped up by the Browns and playing 2 games for the team last year. And despite signing a fresh 1-year, $1 million deal with the Browns in January, he announced on Sunday that he was hanging up his cleats ahead of training camp beginning this week. Let's see, does he have anything? Okay. What this game has given to me cannot be measured. So many of the best relationships in my life are connected to this sport. It allowed me to be a part of so many great teams and organizations, he wrote on Instagram. It's put me in rooms with some of the most dedicated individuals I've ever met. It gave me space to push the limits of what I thought I was capable of. Though I never reached all of my goals, I am happy walking away from the game. The chase of greatness was intoxicating. It will be truly missed. Smith went on to say that he was fortunate enough to have played this game as long as I wanted. That would not have been possible without the work of my family, teammates, and coaches put into helping me achieve my dreams, he concluded. In 15 regular season games, Smith totaled 13 combined tackles and 1 forced fumble. He finished his career with $2.348 million in earnings. So, I mean, I just remember, him. I mean, when with the Giants, it was just so frustrating. It was like he always like one injury after the other, and it was like it was like him and like almost like Kadarius Toney. I mean, that's why I don't have much hair. I mean, it was just like there was always one injury after this. Like Ellerson Smith had an injury. Kadarius, what's wrong with Kadarius Toney now? And Ellerson Smith's got it. It was unbelievable. And I say once again, it's just very frustrating for us fans. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, and all of that. But it was just. Sometimes I have a hard. How could these guys make it through college and they can't even make it through like a training camp without getting decimated by injuries? It's just, oh my goodness. But on a brighter note here, I saw this. The underrated team. Okay, guys, pretty much in recent history, pretty much, guys that had very good careers, were very productive, but were underrated, as it says in this thumbnail here. Now, the Giants had 3 players. One of them really wasn't much of a Giant, for very long, okay, but who were underrated. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were all on the offensive line, right? Because, this guy right here, very underrated. Very, very underrated. All right, here we go. Where are we at here? That's it. 3 ex-Giants named to the all-time most actually underrated team. Underrated is a term that has become loosely used over the past decade. Players who hardly fly under the radar have been given that label unjustly, resulting in overuse. So what does underrated actually mean? And what NFL players, past or present, are actually underrated? Our NFL Wire colleague, John Sigler of Saints Wire, recently set out to redefine the word and restore it to its roots. In doing so, he compiled an all-time team of players who are and have been generally underrated. First up was the offense, and 3 former members of the New York Giants found themselves on the all-time most actually underrated team. Who drew the initial nod? Well, one-time All-Pro and 2-time Super Bowl champion David Deal, the left tackle. He was the second team left tackle in this underrated article here. Deal did really well for himself as a former 5th-round pick. He won the New York Giants starting job at left tackle in his second season and held on to it for several years before he was asked to move around, splitting time at both guard spots and right tackle. He started 160 of 164 games in the NFL, all with New York, and he won a pair of Super Bowl titles too. He was a key piece of those Giants teams everyone wrote off before they played a single snap. Deal was a key part of the Giants' offensive line that became one of the very best and most consistent in football. And for that reason, it's fitting that the next Giant on Sigler's list is fellow offensive tackle Kareem McKenzie, who was the first team offensive tackle most underrated. How many guys can say they spent all 161 games playing for 2 different teams in the same city, right? Because McKenzie came to us from the New York Jets. McKenzie was the 3rd-round pick by the Jets in 2001, but he went across town to sign with the New York Giants and ended up winning 2 Super Bowls there. He did a great job protecting Eli Manning all those years and anchoring the right side of the line. The way some Giants fans tell it, the team never did get around to replacing him at right tackle. How true that is. Last up for the Giants is an active player, and we only had him for a short period of time. But the one thing is that, the thing was that with Gettleman, right, what he did with our salary cap was just basically we let him go, right? And Shane came in. The salary cap was just a total disaster. Total disaster. Unfortunately, because we had so many, like Galladay, we had some really bad contracts in the books. This next guy we're going to talk about, Kevin Zeitler, is still in the NFL, still producing. And sometimes it's just so funny because you had Kevin Zeitler who did do pretty well with the. I mean, he wasn't super duper phenomenal, but he did well for us when he was with the Giants. And of course, I believe it's because of the salary cap. We had to let him go, and he's still out there performing at a nice level. And the Giants keep needing offensive line help. And we had him. We had somebody who was doing pretty good, who was on the line, did pretty good, and we just let him go. And now we're still looking for help. Gettleman, wow. What a treat he was. So last up for the Giants is an active player who wasn't part of those offensive lines. Rather, he was a solid piece for what were some of the worst offensive lines in football. He now calls Tennessee home. Kevin Zeitler, the right guard, the second team right guard. Once again, in this article, he's the second team right guard on the most underrated, right? One time, Kevin Zeitler was the highest paid guard in the NFL which feels like a nice consolation prize for being recognized as just one Pro Bowl in his 13-year career. Zeitler is on to his 16th in his 198-game career, but he was picked in the first round, so we're putting him behind Garza, who was a fourth rounder when he entered the league. Sigler also considered several other Giants, including running back Jonathan Stewart and wide receiver Golden Tate, for his list, but they did not make the cut. Okay, this article actually appeared in Giants Wire, 3 ex-Giants named to the all-time most actually underrated team. Let's see here what we got. So at quarterback was Ryan. With the first team was Ryan. I'll just go over the first team. Was Ryan Fitzpatrick, most underrated. Running backs, LeGarrette Blount, first team. Wide receiver, I got 2 of them, Marcus Colston and Adam Thielen. We got tight end, Ben Watson. Left tackle, Jeff Backus, who was the first team. David Deal was the second team at left tackle. Left guard, Raymond Foster, his first team. And, of course, the center, Dominic Raiola. Right guard, Roberto Garza. Kevin Zeitler was the second team. Then we got right tackle. First team was Kareem McKenzie. All right, then we got okay. That was the offense. I don't know if he has the defensive side. I'm not going to bother reading the defensive side. Oh, on offense, the actually underrated team on offense. So there was. So I'm not sure if they're if whether or not. Right, I'm not sure whether or not any Giants are on the underrated, all-time underrated defensive team or not. But there was 3 Giants, and they're all on the offensive line. And I said, but I always get such a kick out of with the Kevin Zeitler thing. As I said, he wasn't unbelievably super fantastic or nothing like that with the with the Giants, but he did well. But because of the way the contract was and all that, we I don't want to let him go to save some money. And he's out there still performing at a nice rate. And the Giants are still looking for offensive line out. So, although he wasn't ever going to be a long-term solution at all or anything like that because of his age, but he's still out there performing well. Now, this one here, as I said, this one here is, you got to look at, biceps Bellinger. Right? There's a video taken from a couple years ago. that photo. He's coming back. He's got the visor on because he got, his rookie season. He got poked in the eye. I think it was against Jacksonville. He was doing pretty well. But then, of course, in the second season when he came in here, right, for him, he with Waller here, so he had to take a back seat to Waller. He got some snaps, but obviously Waller was, the main man, right, as far as tight ends were concerned. Then, of course, that last season, right, Waller retired. We drafted Theo Johnson. We did not have a, unbelievable tight end group last season. If Bellinger was going to come to the, to the forefront or whatever, he had his chance, but, Theo knocked him out, right? So Theo was until Theo got hurt. But so Bellinger is very interesting, very interesting. We got, I don't know if Dulcich is going to make the team or not, but we got Manhurts, we got Fedoni, Theo Johnson, and we got Bellinger. So are we going to keep 4 tight ends on the 53? Ooh. I don't know. Don't know. Theo Johnson, pencil him in as long as he's healthy. Fedoni, I'd have a hard time. We just drafted the guy, so I'd have a hard time seeing him being put on the practice squad. We got Manhurts in here, not for obviously for receiving production, although I think last year he did get a receiving touchdown, but he's in there for blocking, and he's very good blocking tight end, right? So Bellinger's got his work cut out for him. This is one of those ones. As I said, I had the video I did with as far as with the contract years, right? Bellinger's one of those guys. But Bellinger might, unlike maybe Belton, McFadden, maybe Flott, Neal, if he does well, some of those guys might be more, on the Giants' to-do list to try to bring some of those guys back. Not so sure about Bellinger. I mean, unless he, I don't know, has a really good season. I don't know. He might be on the outside looking in. Now, of course, it doesn't mean, if we only keep 3 tight ends, he might get put on the practice squad. We don't know. But he's certainly going to be, without question, one of the Giants to keep an eye on. Right? What winds up happening with him? Because we know Theo Johnson, is probably going to be the starting tight end. So a lot of positional battles going on. So even obviously, as we know, even though the starters, some in certain positions are penciled in, the guys battling out for the roster spots in the second and third team will be very interesting to see. But once promising tight end, Daniel Bellinger could be fighting for his job at training camp. New York Giants have a difficult decision to make at tight end. With training camp kicking off this week, the Giants will begin to reorder their depth chart for the upcoming 2025 season. By the end of summer, they will need to make roster cuts and ultimately make tough decisions on who to let go. Is Daniel Bellinger on the roster bubble? Giants are confident in second-year tight end Theo Johnson to continue blossoming this season as their starter. Behind him, however, is a competition for the backup spot on the depth chart. Former third-round pick Daniel Bellinger, third-rounder, seems to be in line to be the second-string tight end. However, that could change over the course of training camp. Don't forget about Fedoni. Don't forget about him. Competing alongside Daniel Bellinger will be veterans Chris Manhurts, who is Greg Dulcich, and 7th-round pick. 47 All right. Thomas Fedoni. All 3 of these tight ends are cheaper, which is true. And as we're going to go over, right? We're going to go over Bellinger, right? All between Manhurts, Dulcich, and Fedoni, all 3 of those tight ends are cheaper and much cheaper than Bellinger, and thus could dethrone him. Giants could release Bellinger for cap relief. Releasing Bellinger would save the Giants $3.4 million in cap space. He's got a little bit of a cap hit this year. His cap hit is what's it? I think his cap hit is like $3.6 million. So what it was is they pushed a lot of the money down the road. He only counted. He didn't count too much toward the cap his first 3 years. This season, his cap hit is quite a bit. Giants had $3.4 million in cap space per over the cap. That may not seem like a lot at first, but considering the Giants have only $3.8 million in total cap space entering training camp, any savings would be impactful. So if they release Bellinger, they would save 3.4. And they only have 3.8 going in there. That would almost double the amount of money salary cap money they would have. They would go from having 3.8 in salary cap space to 7.2. So Bellinger is the team's highest paid tight end on the current roster, despite not being projected as a starter. That discrepancy could motivate New York to release him for cap relief. Although he is a solid backup, the difference in quality between Bellinger and the next best guy could prove to be negligible, making the $3.4 million in cap relief all the more attractive. If it winds up being something between, Fedoni, they're only going to keep like maybe 3 tight ends on the active roster. Is Bellinger that much better than Fedoni? Fedoni's a 7th round pick. Fedoni ain't making a whole heck of a lot. Let's see what I got here. Where are we at here? Okay, we go. Right. Let's see. Well, let me see. Bellinger goes. Where are we at here? Bellinger's $3.6 million toward the cap this season. All right, let's do the tight ends underneath them here. Greg Dulcich is $1.4 million toward the cap. Let's see. Manhurts, $1.2 million toward the cap. Trying to find Fedoni. He's got to be down toward the bottom down there. Oh, Fedoni is about like $900,000 toward the cap. So actually, I mean, really, if you look, all right, if you add up Manhurts, Dulcich, and Fedoni, their 3 salaries combined 1.2, or I think, are less than what Bellinger's is. Bellinger's at 3.6. I think Manhurts, Dulcich, and Fedoni's like 3. Their 3 combined salaries are like 3.2 or 3.3. So, is it going to be worth it keeping Bellinger and letting go Dulcich? Is Bellinger that much of an upgrade? I mean, if we let Bellinger go and we keep Fedoni, Manhurts, and maybe Dulcich on the practice squad, we just drafted Fedoni. He's a phenomenal athlete. Long, lean, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. Very interesting to see. Where are we at here? As a rookie in 2022, Bellinger was impressive, totaling 30 receptions for 268 yards and 3 total touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown in only 12 games, though, because let's not forget, remember, he got poked in the eye. He broke his eye socket or whatever the heck it was against Jacksonville, and he had to start wearing the shield. So he missed like, 5 games? So he played like, I don't know, a little more than 2/3 of the season, and he had 30 receptions. And actually, obviously in that Jacksonville game, he got injured. He had to come out. So he played in the game, but he didn't play the whole game. So he played 12. He might have played like 11 and a half games. So basically he played like 2/3 of the season. So he had 30 receptions. So you figure if he played the whole season, he would have maybe had 45 receptions or so. For a rookie tight end, that's not too bad. And he had 3 touchdowns. So he might have had 4 touchdowns. He might have had, 45 receptions, maybe 400 yards for 4 touchdowns. Once again, we're not talking Kelsey. We're not talking, Mark Bavaro here. You're not talking, but it wasn't bad. You figure, he had 30%, maybe he would keep going up, he keep getting better and better and better. He has not scored a touchdown since 2022 and received a career low 17 targets last season, totaling just 125 yards on 14 receptions. Bellinger's role has diminished each season he has been in the league. Now, with a crowded tight end room entering training camp, he could find himself on the outs, which is true. I said his salary is $3.6 million. So. It's quite possible. I mean, they only had 17 targets all last season. Average, basically, so what? He averaged 1 target a game. And we don't have the most phenomenal tight end room. So for him to only get, 1 target a game last year, not saying much. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I said they do let him go, would save $3.4 million, because I think there was like $190,000 in dead cap money or something like that. So if we were to let him go, his cap hit is 3.6. The Giants would say 3.4 million, and about 200,000 would be dead money. But he's going to be another one of those guys to keep an eye on. But it just once again, kind of like one of those head scratchers. You kind of, because he had his rookie season wasn't bad, and you kind of figured that maybe, he might keep escalating, right, on his way up each year. Maybe get a little bit better, but it just really hasn't happened. Yeah, I'm not sure if if getting poked in the eye had any problem, has caused him any issues or not. But injuries do happen. It's a shame. All right, and finally, once again, no love for the New York Football Giants. A lot of it is kind of like, it's like, show me the money, right? Show me the wins, and then we'll show you the love, right? So the Giants, the ESPN blasts the Giants and their lineup. I think the Giants, in their article here, they have them like the 27th, best lineup in all of football. I kind of, I really have a hard time believing that. You look at the Giants defense. Once again, on paper is one thing, doing it is something else, but the defense really should be pretty good. So, the 27th overall best lineup, come on, man. I have a hard time believing that. ESPN blasts the New York Giants roster ahead of the 2025 NFL season. The Giants may have injected excitement into their fan base this offseason, but their roster is still a long way from becoming a playoff contender. At least that's what the latest roster rankings by ESPN would suggest. The worldwide leader slotted the New York Giants roster as number 27 overall, which, as fans of Big Blue unfortunately have grown accustomed to, means that they're setting up to be one of the worst 5 teams in the NFL this season. Well, a lot of it also, quite possibly, which is not going to help, is our very difficult schedule we have. As for the team's biggest weakness, ESPN gave the dubious ground to the New York Giants offensive line. Well, it's true. It's show me the love, right? Show me the good offensive, which we have, which wasn't bad last season. The first 5 games of last season, we were 2-3. Should have been 3-2 if we actually had a kicker when we played against Washington in Washington. If we had a kicker, quite possibly we could have won that game. Those were the first 5-6 games when we had our offensive line was intact. Once Andrew Thomas got injured in week 6 against the Bengals, the wheels fell off the bus and everything was all downhill from there on. Giants are set to return all 5 starters from 2024, but that may not be a good thing. ESPN's Mike Clay wrote that left tackle Andrew Thomas is very good, but he has missed substantial game action in the recent seasons and doesn't have a ton of help. Well, the big thing with him, the big question with him is, can he stay healthy? I think, if I remember, I think he missed 18 games over the last 2 seasons. Last 2 seasons, 17 games. He could have played in a total of 34. He only played in 16. So he's missed more than half of the games over the past 2 seasons. Is this going to be a recurring theme for Andrew Thomas? Can he ever stay healthy ever again? I'll have to wait and see. But they said he doesn't have a ton of help. Left guard John Runyon, center John Michael Schmitz, right guard Greg Van Roten, and right tackle Jermaine Illuminor all posted below average to poor PFF grades and run block win rates last season, with all three interior linemen ranking bottom 20 in the latter stat among 92 qualified players. The draft provided minimal help, as fifth-round guard Marcus Bowe was the only offensive line investment. Unfortunately for the Giants, that offensive line will eventually be charged with blocking for first-round rookie quarterback Jackson Dart. Veteran Russell Wilson will begin the season as the starter, but at some point the reins will be handed to the former Ole Miss star. Perhaps it may be a good idea to wait a season, or at least until New York's O-line proves it's capable of at least league average pass protection. Well, the thing is that what's a little, or shall we say, very misleading, okay, once again, is that, talking about, how poor everything was, and but they were a functionable unit the first few weeks of the season, right? As I said, we were 2-3. If we actually had a kicker, right, and when we played against Washington, quite possibly we would have been 3-2. Once we got injured, once Andrew Thomas got injured, we were 2-3. Andrew Thomas got injured against Cincinnati, right? After we were 2-3, we won one game the whole rest of the season. Man, what a long season that was. Went from 2-3 to 3-14. Oh my God. But a lot of that also had to do with the offensive line. Once the offense, we got guys moving all over the place, guys playing out of position. Luminor went from right tackle to left tackle, right? Van Roten was a guard, then went to center. Yeah. Guys moving on. John Runyon Jr., of course, he missed some time. Like the first time in his career he missed any time. Of course, when he played with the Packers, he was always held. Well, not always held, but he played all the games. Comes here with the Giants and he gets injured. So, right? But we had 10 different starting offensive line units, right? Pretty much the whole rest of the season. From like we started at the first 6 games, right? Yeah, I think we started the same 5 guys. Andrew Thomas got injured in week 6, and the season was over with. So basically from week 7 to the end of the season, almost every week was a different starting offensive line unit. There's not many teams out there that can afford to do that and go on and win a Super Bowl. Not many times. And you couple that up with the fact that the Giants had 4 different quarterbacks playing last season. Right? Tommy Chicken Cutler Parmesan, Daniel Jones, Boyle. Right? 4 different quarterbacks, 10 starting offensive line units, right? So they say in that article how the Giants, their biggest weakness is their offensive line. And I can, it's, show me the money and we'll start showing you some love, and maybe the Giants will get a better ranking. Once again, it's just a ranking by somebody in ESPN, right? But, they do have a good point. The Giants do need to prove, over the course of a full season that their offensive lines might be fixed. But to be fair to the Giants, as I said, the first 5 or 6 games last year, they were playing, functionable football. And obviously, the longer an offensive line unit plays together, right, they get more and more comfortable with each other, the better they keep playing. Like I said, but once Andrew Thomas got injured, the wheels fell off the bus, and it was just, you go from, what do I say? You go from 2-3 to 3-14. You win one game the last 12 games, you win one football game. And the one thing was, the one was like toward the end of the season. And of course, what wound up making it even freaking worse was, the fact that, we were trying to, get a good draft pick, and we had the number one pick. And of course, then we had the number one pick, and what we wound up doing, right? Wound up winning a game against the Colts, and we didn't have the number one pick. So, be interesting to see, though. We'll also be going also back to something like that as well, too. It'll be very, very interesting to see, because you figure now Ward and Dart will always kind of be somewhat will always be, right? Always kind of compared. Did the Giants actually win out? Will how successful will Ward be? How successful will Dart be? If Dart can be as successful as Ward, well, maybe the Giants maybe won out, because the Giants not only got Abdul Carter, but we got Jackson Dart, right? That's where Tennessee just got Ward. So, but the Giants did not win that one game against the Colts. We got the number one pick. We get Ward, but we don't. Obviously we're not going to have Dart, whatever. But we wouldn't have Carter either. So the Giants got Carter and Dart in the first round. Tennessee just got Ward. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how Ward does. Hope he does good. Hope he does, because one thing we need in the NFL, we need good quarterback play. So hope he does good, but I hope Dart does even better. All right, guys, it's been 1 hour and 52 minutes. Whoever spent any time listening to me live, thank you, thank you, thank you. Or if anybody's going to spend any time watching the replay of this once again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. As always, you guys stay safe out there and go Giants! Woo! Oh, yeah.